Are you ready to tour the high tunnel again? Let's go. Hey friends, it's Kendall, your joyful farmer. We're in the high tunnel again today. Over the past 4 weeks or so, since you saw this garden last, it has really exploded with growth. It is an absolute jungle in here. There is a lot going on and I can't wait to show you around. So grab your cup of coffee or cup of tea and settle in because we've got a lot of plants to look at today. And if you stick around to the end, I might even walk you around the big garden and show you the flowers that I've got growing up there. So we are in North Texas. We are growing north of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in zone 8A, 8B, kind of on the borderline there. We deal with really hot summers, and so our goal this year with the high tunnel was to extend our growing season a little bit, get started a little bit earlier in the spring, and to be able to do some shade cloth throughout the summer to hopefully continue to help support our plants as they grow throughout the heat of the summer when it starts to get above 100 degrees for 30 to 45 days over the summer. So I have direct sown a lot in here, I have transplanted a lot in here, and I've gotten started a whole lot earlier in here. Only maybe a couple of weeks ago did I start direct sowing out in the big garden. So everything in here has been growing for quite some time. The soil's been nice and warm for it in here, and you're gonna see a whole lot of growth that's happened over the past 4 weeks since our last garden tour. So we're gonna start up here in the front corner. As soon as you walk through the high tunnel, there are these dahlia tubers that I planted. Most of them have come up. There's one I think that I've decided has not wanted to join the party, so it is maybe not alive at this point. I'll still leave it in the ground and see what it will do, but I've got some dahlias that are looking pretty good, and then I've also got some straw flower that I kind of interspersed here to fill some of this space in case this dahlia tuber decides that it really doesn't want to wake up and join the party. But they're growing pretty nicely. They've got some buds starting to form, so hopefully within the next 3 or 4 weeks we'll start to see some bloom. Scooting back just a little bit, you can see the dino kale has really taken off, and I've got some scallop squash. I believe it's a yellow scallop squash that I started from seed over here. I've got one more blank space that I think I'm gonna put some of my leftover snapdragons in just to see how they'll do out here in the high tunnel. But I'm excited for the yellow scallop squash. And right behind that is the giant zucchini. When I planted them, I knew how big they were gonna get, and I knew they were gonna take over the space a little bit. I probably should get in there and prune some of the lower leaves. Oh, guess who's here to join us? I'm telling you, I can't come out here. I can't be outside without Luke joining us. He always shows up. What was I saying? Oh, so the giant zucchini plants, I knew they were going to get that big. I knew they were going to even maybe possibly crowd out the kale that I planted over there. It's okay. I'll probably cut back some of the leaves, but for now I'm just going to let it go. I'll get in there and harvest the zucchini. We've got some zucchini that's, I think, just about ready to harvest. What's been really cool about this variety of zucchini, I think it's called the Dunja variety of zucchini, is it's bred for greenhouse production. It requires minimal pollinator activity, and I've absolutely found that to be true so far. I actually have not hand pollinated any of the plants, and there are a few insects that are getting into the high tunnel. We have insect netting on all of the openings of the high tunnel, so the side walls have insect netting as well as the screen door, and so far the pollinators have not been, or what few pollinators are in here have been enough to cause those plants to produce zucchini. So I'm really excited to have found a good variety that it appears very productive so far. Has lots of zucchini growing on it. So, but yeah, it's pretty much a jungle in there. And that's okay. Speaking of jungles, this is the purple orac. I ripped a whole bunch of it out a while ago, but some of them I left. This is one plant. So if you are curious about trying purple orac, it is capable of growing pretty tall. Okay, back here behind the zucchini, I have my floret seeds. So I actually decided to put my floret celosia over here. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll put it on the screen for you. But I've got some that's starting to flower and it's looking pretty cool. Some of them are the more spiked look and some of them are turning out to be the flatter ones. So I'm really excited to see how those grow. They should be really pretty. And then back behind Luke, there are the dahlias from Floret. Those are the Bee's Choice variety. There are lots of different bright and pastel colors. So those are gonna be super pretty. And back here, we've got the Floret zinnias. They're the Dawn Creek variety from her. And they are starting to bloom. So I'm excited to start seeing some color on them. This one's kind of got a lavender blush with just a little bit of a lime green on it. Really looks like it's glowing. And then there's one that's also got more of a coral kind of blush to it. They're a little bit more muted than I thought that they would be. Sometimes they look like they're glowing. Other times they do look like, I don't know, like they're just a little bit more kind of antique looking than I thought they would be. So we'll see how the rest of them bloom. And look, oh, Luke, you see that cool little beetle? He's crazy looking, isn't he? Back here in the corner, I had planted eucalyptus starts that I had started back in November, and they're looking really good at this point. Some of them are even a foot long, and they're starting to develop a lot of branching at the base and on the sides. Yep, they're starting to smell like eucalyptus too, so that's awesome. So hopefully I'll have some usable stems for our cut flower bouquets, and hopefully I can bundle some up and put some in the shower and have that eucalyptus vapor in the shower. I think that'll be really nice as well. But yeah, excited for that, to see it growing so nicely. Back here along the back wall of the high tunnel, the outer beds are in a big U shape. So this is the far wall. I've got some peppers planted back here. A few are my peppers that are Jimmy Nardello's. They're a little bit smaller. The bigger ones, they're in the back. Those are some of my dad's chili peppers. He has super hot peppers that he's planted out here, and they're adapting to the high tunnel pretty nicely. And then of course we've got this forest of cilantro as well. Oh, yuck. You know what that is? That is my mortal enemy. So we deal with a lot of grasshoppers and cucumber beetles in North Texas here on our property. And that's really the main reason that we decided to get insect netting on the high tunnel, was to reduce the number of insects coming in. I didn't anticipate that the number of insects would be zero. There's no such thing as a sterile environment when you're dealing with soil that's already been here and nooks and crevices that insects can climb through. The fact, y'all, that I am holding this grasshopper right now is a testament to exposure to insects, because, and it's still kind of grossing me out right now, but if you had asked me 5 years ago, hey, can you catch a grasshopper, or would you touch a grasshopper with your bare hands? My answer would be no. I would step on it, I would squeal. I do not like grasshoppers because of what they do, but over time, it's like exposure therapy, I guess. Over time, it's gotten a whole lot easier to deal with insects with my bare hands. I have not always been this brave, I promise. He is no more. Let me just forget about that. We did also release some ladybugs in here a couple of weeks ago, and they are still around, and they are working on eating aphids. There is not a shortage of food for them right now, so they are eating them, and they're reproducing too. So kind of cool to see them working hard out here and helping with aphid control. And the cilantro is starting to flower as well. That's pretty cool. Oh, that's cool. So here on this cilantro plant, there are crazy amounts of aphids. And there's also little ladybug eggs. I can tell that they're little ladybug eggs. I'll have to see if they hatch. I'm not really super worried about the aphids because they're concentrated here or there. And if they're on this cilantro right now, I'm okay with that. I'm not eating this bolted cilantro right now. So yeah, little ladybug habitat, I guess. So over here in this corner, I've got another variety of eucalyptus. So I've got eucalyptus on both the corners of the big U of the high tunnel. And it's looking pretty good as well. It's a little slower growing than the other variety. I think because this is the baby blue eucalyptus, it's a little bit smaller leaves and a little bit more compact. So it's just taking a little bit longer to catch up, I guess. And if I scoot up this direction just a little bit, you can see I'm growing a cat as well as some snapdragons. There's some snapdragons that are all different sizes right now. Some are really having, oh, there's another little grasshopper. Ugh. Some of the snapdragons are really having to catch up with others. So, but they're looking good. I have not pinched these yet, so I probably should get in here and do that. I'll clip them. Get out of the fire ants, Luke. Are you crazy? So I will go in and pinch them, and I'll use the tops that I clip off, and I will put them in soil, and I'll use them to propagate some more snapdragons. And those might or might not do well, but it's always worth a try to me to propagate more plants where I can. All right, coming forward a little bit more, this is the big dahlia experiment that I've got going on. From here back is all the dahlias that I transplanted, so they're about a week older than the ones in the front of them, but these are doing pretty nicely. They're getting nice and tall, and there's actually some that are about to bloom. There's one that's looking like it's kind of a magenta color, and probably within a week or so, that'll be my first dahlia bloom of the season. It's a little staggering to see the difference in the height and size of some of these plants. I think because some of the transplants endured a little more transplant shock than others. Maybe that's why, but a lot of them are more stunted, but some of them are huge. So it's kind of interesting to see. But overall, I have noticed that the transplanted dahlias have a lot less branching going on, and they're very much focused more on the single stem and trying to produce that one bloom. So it's interesting to see. I guess because they underwent some stress, they're really trying to push out that bloom and try to be certain that they can reproduce, because that's their goal, right? Down here you can see the direct sown dahlias. You can tell that they're quite a bit bushier. They've got a lot more side shoots. Oh, look at that little ladybug larva. Aren't you cute? But they've got a lot more side shoots going on. We've got a lot more branching that's happening, which that's cool. So direct sown versus transplanted, there's definitely a marked difference in the plants. But I have noticed as well that the direct sown have pretty much caught up with the transplanted ones, even though the transplant ones were a week older. And they've got lots of buds on them as well. It's about to be a lot of dahlias in here. Up here in this corner, I've got my Sweet Annie or wormwood. That is probably about 3.5 feet tall at this point. It's got all of this really nice foliage that I'll be able to clip and put in cut flower bouquets. But it's growing well. It's little, there's a larger plant, and the smaller one next to it is struggling a little bit, probably because I planted them 12 inches apart when I think the suggested spacing is more like 3 or 4 feet. Whoopsie. So it goes to show that sometimes maybe it is good to follow the directions on the seed packets as far as spacing goes, but a lot of times I just want to experiment and try growing a plant for myself and figure out what works for it in my situation, in my environment and climate, and just for me personally, because I'm sometimes a lazy gardener. I don't mind pushing boundaries to figure out what works and what doesn't work and what I can make work even though they say it won't work. I love that gardening is a big experiment. It's so much fun. Okay, here I am in tomato row. This is a really full bed, and I've done quite a bit of pretty high intensity spacing in this bed, and I've gotten away with it pretty well. So all along this edge, there are beets. Some of them are a Detroit dark red beet, and then others are a Detroit golden beet. Some of the golden beets are now ready to harvest, so I need to go through and pull some of them. But the beets have grown really well. Even despite the pretty warm temperatures in here, it'll get to 100 degrees in the high tunnel right now when the sun is out, especially between like 11 in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's especially hot in here. So even with the sidewalls up and the ventilation going through, it's been really warm. But the beets have still been doing really well. They're really lush and developing some really nice beet roots on them. So I'm really excited to get some golden beets and eat them here for dinner pretty soon. I direct sowed these beets, I think, back in January, so I was able to get a little bit of a head start. Usually we don't start direct sowing seeds into the ground until around Valentine's Day here in this area. So I do have beets a little bit early. That's nice. And then I did punctuate the end of this bed with some more dino kale. It has a little bit more room to grow down here than it does underneath the zucchini jungle over there. And then I've got some dill on the other corner, as well as some sort of a stray bean plant. I don't know what kind of bean plant that is. It may have just been an extra green bean that ended up all the way at the end. Or actually, I think the pill bugs may have gotten some of my bean seedlings over there. So I then decided to transplant my dill there to fill this space. And it's worked out pretty well. But the glorious magic of this row right here is that there are already tomatoes forming on these plants. I have never in my years of gardening had tomatoes start to form in April. That's crazy to me. Usually they look like this in about May, but they've really started to get big. Just a week ago, I went through and pruned all of these and tied them up, and it's time to do it again. So it'll be a weekly thing from here on out. I really am trying my best to get these tomatoes trained to one string on the vertical trellis. I'm really trying to do my best to train each tomato plant to the one string and keep it to the one lead stem. And so far it's working pretty well. It's helped to have the little staples there at the base kind of pushing into the soil so that it keeps the twine in one spot. But there are lots of flowers on these tomato plants and lots of big green lush leaves, and they're looking really, really nice. I definitely need to get in here and do some more tying up and pruning though. I did get a little overzealous the other day when pruning, and I went a little bit quickly and I did over prune this guy. I think I topped him. So this particular variety of tomato, which is called Harvest Moon, it's a seed that I got from Johnny's, and it's supposed to be, it's a hybrid, but it's supposed to mimic the big fat yellow tomatoes that I love so much, but be more productive. And what I've noticed about this plant is that you can kind of see it here, that it'll grow the lead stem, it'll shoot fruit off of the lead stem, and then it will grow 2 side branches at once, and it'll develop 2 suckers. So because it's developing 2 little offshoot suckers, I have to keep one of those suckers in order to keep training it to a single stem, but they each look like suckers. So I think that's what happened to this one. When I topped it, I think I just got rid of there was only 1 sucker on it, and I think I got rid of that sucker. So a little sad I ended his life, but I think what I'll do is I will allow both of these to become lead stems, and then I'll just let this guy kind of reach over to this twine and keep going where this plant is now stopping, unless this guy somehow miraculously develops another growth coming off of him. Wow, you can see on here, I'm gonna get rid of this guy, but this is a crazy fasciated blossom. Look at that. That looks like some sort of a creature. How many tomatoes combined would that even be? I don't even know. I've never seen one quite like that before. And this is the harvest moon. So it's an interesting little hybrid plant. Hybrids are not a dangerous or bad thing. It's just what happens when you cross different varieties of tomatoes and get a new variety. But there's some interesting genetics going on here for sure. But then the other one looks perfectly fine. Oh, look at that. That's probably where that one got topped. He may have, yeah, he ended his little growth habit right there. I so need to get out here and prune again. I'm not going to do it right now because I got to finish showing you guys around. But there's this centiflora plant. I love growing these because of the big giant clusters of blooms. Centi just meaning 100 and then flor meaning flower. So you've got this flowering, amazingly kind of monstrous size fruit cluster. And I don't know if all these will produce fruit. I've been trying to kind of shake the blossoms as I walk past them, hoping that there's enough wind to help shake the blossoms and pollinate them. But if all of these develop into fruit, that's a lot of little cherry tomatoes. So I do love growing the centiflores just because they're fun. And down here at the end of the tomato row, you can see my little purple rain tomato. He's a dwarf determinate, and so he's gonna be bushy, and he's already got quite a few flowers on him. So this is where the lead stem is terminating into blooms. But the good thing is you can see the little suckers developing, these little offshoots that are gonna also produce fruit. So we'll let him bush, and we will let him be and let him produce as many delicious little tomatoes as he can. This one tastes a lot like a Cherokee purple or a similar tomato, like a dark tomato. But they're kind of cool because they're round and they're flat, so they're really nice to slice up for tomato sandwiches if you want to be able to slice and have the perfect slice of tomato for your tomato sandwiches. They're really meaty and delicious. Luke's asleep back there. I think talking about plants was too much for him. But you can see down here, the bean plants are just looking absolutely incredible. They are super bushy. And especially the ones in the center, I think those plants might be a tiny bit older, but the ones in the center are really, really tall. And they've got these nice little purple blooms on them. I believe these are the provider bush beans. Beans are self-pollinating if you have enough wind. I'm hoping that between me kind of shaking them and brushing them as I walk by and the breezes that blow through, I'm hoping that that is enough to pollinate all of the beans so we can have all of the green beans to eat fresh and put up in the freezer. But golly, those plants are so green and pretty right now. Let me see if I see any baby beans. I sure do. Okay, at least one of them has pollinated. That's exciting. Baby beans in April. Okay, this last row looks really, really good as well. This one has some direct sown leeks. I direct sowed them, I believe, in late December, early January. But they are almost, some of them are almost full size now. I've left many of them in little clusters together. So I've been kind of thinning them out and pulling the smaller ones a little bit at a time and using them for cooking. But it's really nice to have just a steady supply of leeks that you can just go to and grab from the garden. I know not a lot of people in the US eat leeks compared to in the UK, but I am a huge fan of leeks. I love to saute them and put them in scrambled eggs. I will cook like a potato and leek dish with them. That's really good. Or leeks and bacon are always a really good combination together. Just really good flavor. And then also here on the end, I've got these beautiful looking basil plants. They're a hybrid from Johnny's called Prospera, and I believe they're the Prospera Compact. So they're, oh, it smells so good. It smells like super fresh basil. But they're really bushy, and each little side shoot is pretty short, and so it's keeping the plants nice and small, and it's just really nice to have more basil leaves in a smaller space. So if you're looking for something that you want to be space saving but also give you a whole lot of basil, I'm really liking this variety so far. I also have some little carrots that I sowed a whole bunch of carrot seeds, and I did not get good germination on them for gardener error. I didn't keep them well moist as they were trying to germinate. So I just have a few carrots here and there, and that's totally okay with me. I can go through and pull those and make one little small snack or side for dinner one night. I also have in part of this row in the center, I do have some tomatoes that are trellised here. These are mostly cherry tomatoes. So with the cherry tomatoes, I'm gonna approach pruning just a little bit differently for them. I do like to let suckers grow and develop little fruit clusters, and then I'll terminate that branch so that it has fruit that it's developing, but it's not going to continue growing as a sucker and turn into another stem. On this side, I've got some more bush beans. These I direct sowed a couple of weeks after the ones that you saw in the other bed. I want to say they're the Royal Burgundy bush beans, but I can't remember 100%. So we'll find out when they start making beans. There's some beets that I did a little succession sowing of some more beets. So these are growing and coming up right behind the others that I sowed over there. I think they're the Detroit dark red as well. Or they may have been a different one. I don't know. I don't do a good job of remembering the varieties that I plant sometimes. Sometimes I just grab seed packets and I run out and I do it really quickly and then I'm done, you know. Okay, but possibly the coolest part of this whole high tunnel right now is that we have cucumbers in April, y'all. Check this out. The soil temperatures in the high tunnel were at least 60 degrees, and so I thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and risk it and sow them. So it was a little bit of a gamble that I took because the temperatures out here in the high tunnel at night pretty much cool off to the same temperatures that are outside. So if we have a forecast of 30 degrees outside, it's pretty much, you can count on it getting close to freezing in here. So it was a little bit dangerous to do that, but I think it was really worth the risk because at this point we've got cucumbers in April, which is crazy. I sowed two varieties in here. These on this end were a variety called Excelsior, and they are meant for greenhouse growing, but I've found that these are doing a better job kind of sticking to one stem and being able to keep them vertically trellised. What I discovered this year, which was news to me, is that they're actually indeterminate and determinate varieties of cucumber. So these Excelsior variety have more of a vining growth habit, and they're developing, I can see as it's growing, it's developing what I would call suckers, just like off of a tomato plant. It's developing these little offshoots, which would produce fruit and turn into another vining stem, another stem that's producing fruit. And then the variety that I sowed down toward the end, you'll be able to tell they're a little bit bushier looking, and I have not pruned any of these at this point. The ones on that end are the Gershwin variety of cucumbers, which are actually a field variety, and they are a determinate variety, so they produce a lot of cucumbers at once. And I'm really interested to see the difference in how these two grow. I'm probably not going to do any pruning to the determinate variety, the Gershwins, because I want it to produce as much as it possibly can. So I'll probably let those produce and be done. And then I will pull them and I'll direct sow some more of these Excelsior seeds so that I have some that are a little bit easier to trellis down there, and I have some succession sowing for another later harvest of cucumbers. Both of these varieties of cucumbers are more of a pickling variety. They have the little spines, and those, I really prefer those over other, like a Market More cucumber. Oh my goodness, I didn't even notice some of these are so big. They might be a little overgrown at this point. This is unheard of. Okay, so I picked, these are several of the Excelsior cucumbers, and then I also got one of the Gershwin. So you can see they're very similar in size and shape and texture. They both have the little spines, and they're both a good pickling cucumber is what they're supposed to be. They both also look really good as smaller cucumbers as well. They'd be really good for gherkin-sized pickles if you wanted to make those. But let me show you a little bit of the difference in the growth habit of these, so you can kind of see that up close. Luke, are you still asleep? Okay, so you can see on the Excelsior variety of cucumbers, they do have more of a vining habit. You can tell there's more just like one lead vine going on. And if you look down toward the base, the fruit production was just kind of here and there. The stems are offshooting. There's also a cucumber to accompany it. So really what I will probably do is go through and, oh, I hate to just prune off these perfectly good stems, but I am trying to keep them to one trellis. So what I may do on some of them is I'll just pinch off the growth. Oh, not the leaf, but the growth. Whoopsie. Pinch off the growth, so the stem that's trying to develop and just continue to fruit and vine and go crazy, I'll probably pinch those off. So I'll still have a little bit of fruit that's being produced by some of the offshoots, but overall it will still be on the one twine going upward. And then what's really cool about this variety, this is the Gershwin variety, is that it's producing a whole lot of fruit at one time. So these, I mean, very shortly after the plant started getting established, it started producing fruits and blooms. And you can see it's continuing to produce about two or three, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, more in clusters. The fruit is more in clusters, which is really cool to see. But it is continuing to grow, so I don't know how determinate this cucumber is. It appears that the vine is still going on this one. So maybe this one will be easier to grow on a trellis, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a field pickler. Yeah, you can see all those fruits down there. And both of these are parthenocarpic and gynoecious, which means that they're producing all female flowers. So they each all have female flowers, and parthenocarpic is just that they're self-pollinating. So they're doing a really good job producing lots of cucumbers in here. It's about to get really real with cucumbers, and I need to start harvesting some more. Got my cucumber snack and my coffee. Pretty good stuff. Okay, this is the last little end of a garden bed in here. This one is probably my favorite spot in the high tunnel garden right now, just because it's got some little surprises in it. I don't know if you ever sow yourself some surprises, but I do that. I sow myself some surprises. I came out a few weeks ago, and so a few weeks ago I realized, oh, I haven't sown nasturtium seeds, and I really need to start some. Maybe I can start them indoors. And so I was going to go to clip them with nail clippers to kind of scarify them and then soak them and then sow them out out here, or maybe start them in some cells. And then before I had the chance to start those nasturtium seeds, I came out here one day, and sure enough, there were little baby nasturtiums that I sowed myself. And I went, oh, thank you, former self, for helping future self out. And so I guess what I had done was, and I recalled doing this after I saw them, is that I did not soak them or scarify them at all. I just stuck them out in the soil, probably back in February, maybe late February, early March. So I sowed them out here, and they're super pretty. I think it's the Alaska mix nasturtium, but they're super beautiful variegated leaves, and I am just absolutely loving them right now, and I'm so excited that they were here. So if you've never tried sowing yourself some surprises, I would highly recommend it. It's kind of funny. And then here on the end, I also have some little mini cucumbers that I'm trying. They are the H19 Little Leaf, I believe is the name of the variety, but they're super small. They're just kind of adorable because they're miniature little dwarf cucumber plants. They are starting to produce some blooms, but they all look like they're male blooms so far. Oh no, wait, there are a few little cucumbers developing. I see a couple little females flowers, so I'm excited to have some little mini picklers here on the end. We'll see how they grow. I just decided to let them ramble here on the end. They aren't really big plants, so they're not gonna engulf the space too much, I don't think. This is what's left of the purple orac. I came through and I pulled so many of these plants, and I just left a couple of little stumps, and they're still producing and going. And the chickens love this stuff. I don't mind it. It's pretty good. I thought by now at this point that, especially as hot as it's been in here, that it would have bolted. I think it is starting to flower, so I'm just gonna leave these and see what the flowers look like. The leaves themselves are so beautiful and purple that I'm really curious to see if the flowers match that color or if they're a little bit different. But it's been really fun to grow, and because it's so cold tolerant, I think I might even grow quite a bit of it over the winter in here just for chicken feed, because it's so high in nutrition and really adds some nutrition to the eggs that we get from our chickens. And then on the other side, behind the purple orac, there's some purple Spanish sized purple onions. I think they were called a Spanish red onion, but they're supposed to develop a little bit narrower bulb, and I think some of those are ready to harvest as well, so I probably need to go through and pick some of those. But look at the size of that purple orac back there. That is tall. That's probably 5 foot tall back there. It's crazy. I put my cucumbers in my pocket. This is a 3 cucumber pocket right here. And a few more. Now let's go to the big garden and I'll give you a quick sneak peek of what's going on out there. Okay, y'all, I'm not ready to do a full garden tour out here yet, but this is our big garden. I just wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek at some of the flowers that are blooming so far and what's to come. So this past year, I've learned a lot about the cool flowers method and got Lisa Mason Ziegler's book about overwintering flowers and sowing some flowers in early spring. So I've got a whole bunch that's blooming in April, which is pretty amazing. We've got everything from yarrow to billy balls or otherwise known as sunball, cresspedia. I've got some more sweet Annie out here, feverfew, a bunch of straw flower, also a bunch of grass and weeds that are going to be fun to deal with here pretty soon, a whole bunch of scabiosa, and I think there's some foxglove down there at the end. There's some blackberries and strawberries. There's some stock, some Persian cress, which has gone absolutely insane, but it's super pretty. Then we've got some white Ami, Clarkia, a random bachelor button plant, more sweet Annie. We've got some delphinium, a whole lot of larkspur, and bachelor buttons. The larkspur and bachelor buttons I direct sowed all of them in the fall of last year. So they overwintered and now they're all blooming like crazy. Some bachelor buttons are so pretty. I didn't realize how many different colors of bachelor buttons there are. Direct sowed some bells of Ireland last fall. I'm in love with that plant, it's so beautiful. Got a row of calendula. This was mostly transplanted in the fall. And some dianthus, which is, this is Sweet William. It's gonna be blooming here pretty soon. And then a whole lot of warm weather crops that are really tiny right now, but you can see them over there. And then I've got my succession of sunflowers going. You can see they start from big to medium size to tiny babies. So oodles of sunflowers. Have some Lysianthus that's transplanted out. Ranunculus is just finishing up blooming. And on our trellises we have, this side has grapevines, and there toward the end there's sweet pea and hyacinth bean vine that are gonna absolutely take over this trellis. And y'all don't mind the weeds because there's a lot of them right now. But yeah, got hyacinth bean vine, sweet peas, so pretty. And then we have some zinnias that I transplanted out as well. There's a little tiny guy. So that's just a little bit of what's going on out in the big garden. So I hope you enjoyed that little tour of the high tunnel garden today. I really enjoyed sharing it with you. It's been such a fun experience and such a blessing to be able to get started earlier with our food growing this year. I just hope that if you're in a situation where you feel like you're a little bit behind all of the crazy jungle growth that's going on in here, that it's not, I hope that it's not negative for you to see all of the growth and things that are happening in here. It's super exciting for me to share it with you, but you know, comparison is the thief of joy. So everybody has their own time and timing when it comes to growing things. Everybody has their own kind of pros and cons of their season and the place where they live. Where I live here in North Texas, it tends to be easier for us to grow in early spring. This is kind of the big push that I've found every year. I have energy and the ability to plant things in early spring before the pest pressure and the heat get bad in the summer. But for those of you that are in cooler climates or maybe feel like you're a little bit behind where I am, just know that by the time July hits here, it is going to be 105 degrees every day. And it's probably going to be so dry that we give up on much of our gardening here and stop watering it because the water gets scarce and expensive. And it's just not even possible for us to grow things like tomatoes and peppers anymore because they drop their blooms. So just know that if you feel a little bit behind now, I'm going to be super jealous of your nice lush green garden when July and August and even September come around. Or maybe you're in zone 9 or 10 and you're ahead of me, who knows? So no matter where you're growing right now, I would love to hear what you're currently working on. What's the status of your garden? What do you have going? What are your plans for this year? And no matter where you're growing, I wish you joy on your gardening journey, and I'll see you next time.